Welcome to another episode of the Founder to Founder podcast. My name is Aaron Spivak, born and raised in Toronto, Ontario, here in Miami, and I've built multiple 7, 8, and 9-figure brands and recently just had the third largest D2C transaction in Canadian history. But today is not about me, because today you get to listen to another incredible story of the founder behind the founder, and we get to dive deep into what it takes to build something incredible. It's not always the tips and tricks, it's how you go about your life. So join us for another incredible podcast at the Founder to Founder. Today's podcast is sponsored by Sorrel, the one tool that you absolutely need to be using when it comes to influencer marketing. Imagine one tool, not spreadsheets, all these other things to consolidate everything you need. The dashboards, the relationship management, the payments, the performance report, all happens in one spot. It's like having a marketing expert on your team. So today, you can book a call with Sorrel. They'll bring the experts. They'll teach you how to use the platform. And of course, they'll make sure that you get the most bang for your buck. They've got a free trial. So just go test it out. See if you like it. They're a great sponsor of the pod. Check out Sorrel. Mark, thank you for coming here. This is going to be, in my opinion, one of the most impactful pods we've recorded to date. I know I've been saying that a lot, so people listen to this are probably like, oh my God, Aaron, you keep saying it.
I think you're full of shit.
But, I think this is going to be interesting because it's going to be different. And I think your story, people are going to be able to resonate with it and really hear and see the authenticity behind it. That's a big thing that we do here, is we really just dive into the authenticity. So first of all, I want to welcome you. Thank you for making the trip. Thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing the team.
Fucking Hialeah. So I sold towels and t-shirts in 1979 at the Hialeah flea market. It was the year I took off from college. I love it here.
Unbelievable. Well, you kind of just kicked me off here. I want to first, I know we'll get into where you're at now and people get to see it and all that, but I want to take a couple steps back.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, a little bit about your early childhood, because being an entrepreneur, some people think it's nature versus nurture. I've seen a trend on this show, speaking to some of the most incredible entrepreneurs, that it can be a little bit of both. Sometimes it's how you grow up, sometimes it's trials, tribulations. Walk me through the beginning. At what point, if you can think back, did you know, like, oh, I'm gonna do something for myself one day?
Wow, you're making me think back. I'm 65, so I got to go back to
Chapters.
King Philip Junior High, and I was selling STP stickers to the kids, and I would get those for free from the Snap-on tool guy who lived next door to us.
What's an STP sticker?
So, Adrian, can you explain to me what STP is? It's an oil treatment, and it's a gas treatment. So what does STP stand for? Look it up. And then all these other like cool car stickers that he would give me, and I would sell those. And then one day, I had some gum, and one of the kids said, "Can I have a piece of gum?" And I said, "Yeah, the nickel." Okay, and I started selling gum. And every so often, I would get called down to the principal's office. I'm not supposed to sell gum. Then I would, I'd have somebody else sell it for me, but I would front them. And I'm.
Wait, how old were you at the time?
I don't know. I was probably 9.
Wow.
It was actually it was elementary school, King Philip Elementary School, because the elementary school was tied to the junior high. And growing up in New England, there were a lot of Indian tribes. So King Philip was one of the, I want to say the Pequot Indians, which we pretty in the north. The biggest, I think, casino is it's called Foxwoods, and it's owned by the Pequot Indians. So, and you have the Mohegan Sun, which is owned by, I think it's the Cherokee. And those are two really pretty big casinos. And the one in Ledyard, which is called Foxwoods, it's like a city.
Wow.
It's enormous. But I started doing that, and then I would get like the boxes of the bazooka gum.
Yeah.
And then fireballs, and then whatever I could get at like at a discount, and I would start selling it. And I don't know, maybe I just had that urge in me to, do something. My dad was a dentist, stand-up dentist. Both of his brothers were dentists. His oldest brother was a lawyer. Then he became a judge. Then he became a Supreme Court judge. Sat, I think, on the bench for about 18 years. He was the toughest uncle I had. He was a tough motherfucker, Judge Lucia.
What does that mean to you when you think back and you're like, wow, he was tough? Like, what is
16? I get my first speeding ticket. I'll never forget the officer that nabbed me, Officer Wallace. And he said, you have two choices. I'm going to give you the ticket, okay? Or I'm going to follow you home and I'm going to tell your father. I'm like, give me the ticket. He goes, oh, I'm going to follow you home and give you the ticket, okay? And tell your father. I'm like, okay, let's go see my dad. So he followed me home, parked the car in the driveway, and he said, go tell your father I pulled you over for speeding. And I had to do that. And I was a little older, and I'm a big car guy. I love old muscle cars. And I was drag racing in what they call the tobacco fields in Windsor Locks, which is where they grow shade-grown tobacco. And I got hit by a cop. And they didn't take your car or impound it, but I got a major ticket. Okay, to me it was a major ticket back then. It was probably $100.
Wow.
Because I was racing for $20. And I told my dad. And my dad's like, I'll call my brother. And my dad said, you can go over to the house and you can go see Uncle Lou and give him the ticket. You'll take care of it. So, and he was always kind of a cold man. Like my other uncles were super warm and touchy-feely. My Uncle Bob, my Uncle Shank, and my Aunt Lillian. And he said, I'm going to take this ticket, but don't ever ask me for a favor again.
Wow.
Okay. I'm a 17-year-old kid. I'm like, cool. I won't ever ask you for anything. And then his wife was Betty, and she was like so sweet, so nice. Come on, Mark, over here. Just leave him alone. So I think I always had a little bit of the entrepreneurial spirit. When I think I was 12, my father taught me to use his snowblower. You remember the snowblowers?
100%.
This was an errands.
You start, knocking on neighbors' doors.
I didn't actually have to knock. My dad's like, here's the snowblower, here's the gas, my driveway. Okay. Then my next door neighbor, his name was Richard Weinstein. His daughter, Danny, prettiest Jewish girl I've ever seen in my whole life.
Wow.
As an adult. I mean, she was a kid when I used to do that. And Mr. Weinstein's like, do you want to do any more driveways? I'm like, yeah, sure. He gets me 12 driveways.
Wow.
So with his driveway and my dad's driveway, I'm doing 14 driveways. And it used to snow a lot in the Northeast. It doesn't snow that much anymore. I guess there's no thing called global warming.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't exist. But I would literally, I'd set the price based on the inches. And Mr. Weinstein was the first because he lived right next door to us. And I would go down my street. Okay. And no one would haggle with me. There were a couple doctors, but there was one guy, okay, and his name was Norman Grody, and his daughter, her name was Missy Cheryl, and she was a really pretty girl. And we were friends because we were the same age. And he was in the mattress business. And he always had a wad of cash, and he was like the coolest guy. And he would be like, well, what did Dr. Nova pay? I said, he gave me $22. He gave me like $50. He just would double everything. All right. and he's like, if they come by, we come and take care of the apron for me. I'm like, yeah. As an adult, where I used to get my hair cut, when I was older, I had to go to the barber shop. Barber's name was Mike, which is where my dad got his hair cut. And Mike was a bookie. And Mike would take book while, you're getting your hair cut. Yeah, phone would ring.
Honestly, a great business as a barber.
Yeah. And I'm asking my dad, what's he doing? And my dad explained to me. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, what's his downside? And my dad says, he doesn't have a downside. I'm like, why? Because he has a bank. I said, okay, what do you mean? He has a bank? Like, We go to the bank. He goes, no, he has a bank. I'm like, cool. You know he has a bank? He goes, yeah, you do his driveway. It's Mr. Grody. He's a fucking bank. I didn't know that. Okay. White hair, cool guy, So, yeah, childhood was amazing.
Yeah. Like, what would you say? A big thing I always find is it's interesting to see the dynamics of, the early memories you have of like, wow, getting your feet wet with entrepreneurship, providing a service, getting paid for it. Also like getting to know, like you get introduced to these older people. It brings out a wad of cash. You're like, whoa, where'd you get that cash from? Like these questions start to question everything. But I'm really curious to hear a little bit about, you speak a lot about your father, that the relationship there is so crucial. Like, how would you describe the relationship with your father and how it's had a role on like you, especially as the years have gone on, but specifically like in those early formative years? How would you describe that relationship?
My father was a brilliant guy. Back then you could get into dental school without graduating college. So he went to 3 years. His older brother, my Uncle Bobby, only went to 2 years of school and graduated. Got their 4-year degrees, 1 and 2 and 1 and 3 at University of Connecticut. And my dad went to dental school in Maryland, University of Maryland, which I still think is considered a really, really good dental school. And my dad was as genuine and as kind as you could imagine, but he was very stoic. He didn't show a lot of emotion when we were kids, but when and it's probably an anomaly for me, everything was about sports. I'm very competitive.
Yeah, me too.
And most short Jewish guys don't play football in high school and don't play football in college, but I did. And maybe that's because I'm so driven and I don't let anything stop me. And my dad never missed a game. He never missed a practice. When I was in high school, my sophomore year, I ran track because I was so fast. But I played baseball in Legion and then American Legion in the summer. And my dad's like, why don't you play at school? I'm like, I really don't want to. And then our backfield coach, because I was a tailback, was a Coach Fitzpatrick. He was the baseball coach. So going into my junior year, he said, are you going to be my center fielder? He goes, I know you play. I've seen you play. Okay, you'd be my leadoff hitter.
Wow.
So I did that for my dad. Okay. Yeah, it's fun to play baseball. So, but everything I did, I wanted to get my dad's approval, but I had already had it.
And how long did it take you to realize that?
It took me to realize that until we did our first business deal together at age 23. And that was when he started to actually become very affectionate and, give me a hug, give me a kiss, and then literally telling me how much he loved me or how proud he was. And I realized that that's not the type of parent that I want to be. But my father's father, who I'm named after, Milton, that's the way he was. He wore a 3-piece suit to work every day. He was a real estate developer, like my mother's father was a real estate developer. And, it's funny because he started a bank called Riverside Bank and Trust. I actually showed Tanner, I brought in an Army ammo box of old notes.
Wow.
Of these old notes. And I have a bunch of them. And you can't believe it. It's just crazy things. They'd lend $1,100, for 30 years on a house back then. And
wow.
There was always a personal note. The people who borrowed the money, were always, genuinely gracious and they were genuinely thankful. Okay.
Wow.
And I saw that as my dad was a dentist in his own hometown. Now, he tried to pass the boards here in Florida. My mother is from Coral Gables. So you have one parent from the Northeast, and you have one parent from the South. And when Miami was 50,000 people, Dade County was 50,000 people. And they didn't like Yankees, so they didn't accept my
Mm.
father. So his father set him up, built him a building, set up an office so he could have his, dental practice. He was the youngest, and I was the youngest of the family. So I absolutely adored my father
Mm.
and my mother, and we had such an amazing home growing up. My brother's a little crazy, but we had such an amazing home growing up. Doors always open. Nobody locks their door. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, that's the way I kind of parent.
The single business decision that turned my business around was letting go of the finances and finding an expert to take them over. We hear that all the time inside the Founders Club. So if you're running a fast-growing brand, product, online, retail, your back office should not be what holds you back. So Fully Accountable is today's sponsor, and they are incredible at outsourcing that in-house financial team that you need. From bookkeeping to those fractional CFO services, and most importantly, like me, if you're looking to sell, they're going to M&A prep your company so that you can get the most bang for your buck. And most importantly, so you can focus on the growth. They have over 600 plus brands that work with them, and they really help when it comes to that financial decision making, which is so crucial. On top of that, if you mention this ad, they've told me that they'll waive the onboarding fees. So take full advantage. Reach out to Fully Accountable.
Yeah, it's very honestly reminds me a lot of the way I grew up in the sense of we grew up 5 boys. Everything happened at my house, there's always food flowing out. My mom was just ripping dishes. My friends were coming over. We were playing sports and football. And I remember one time my brother went headfirst into the corner of the house. We had a brick house. His whole face cut open.
Did you push him?
No, actually, it was a rebound, and it was he kind of went for the ball and he tripped and boom. And I wasn't I was kind of in the house at the time, but I heard it happen. He runs in the house gushing blood, and my mom's just yeah, grab a towel. And I remember that so vividly as a kid, and I was like, how is this going to scale? And looking back, those are some of the most powerful moments, the power of a very strong home, which it sounds like you grew up in.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to get into a lot of the real estate stuff because I think it's super powerful, and I'll even tell you a little bit of my journey with real estate because it ain't so good. But between the childhood,
where are you in the age of you and your 5 brothers?
I'm 4 out of 5.
You're 4 out of 5.
So I'm 30,
mm-hmm.
and then my parents came from Israel with my 3 older brothers. So when they came, they waited a couple years before they had me and my younger brother. So my 3 older brothers are 7, 8, and 10 years older than me. So I grew up quick.
What part of Israel?
My mom is from Ofakim. You probably don't even know what that is. I don't. Ofakim is the ghetto of Israel. It's south of Beersheba. It's very close to Gaza.
South of Beersheba.
Yeah, okay, it's super south of Ashdod.
How far?
They were totally affected October 7th. They came in super south, right? My dad's from Netanya. So my mom,
really?
Yeah. So my mom is Moroccan, super dark. My dad, Polish, blonde hair, blue eyes, total different ends of the spectrum. Really different people too. And but I look back and people ask me what was the pros and cons of this home, and the reason why I bring it up is because the good moments are amazing and we can talk about it all day, but it's could you recall a moment where the world felt like it was done, for yourself, where I'm not getting out of this. This is it. This absolute sucks, where your family, the people in your life, if it weren't for that, you might not be where you're sitting today.
My mother's brother, his name was Mickey, was murdered the year I took off from. And I found him. Pretty girlfriend took a 20-pound dumbbell and hit him in the head. And I couldn't find him for my other uncle, Marvin, sent me. Wow. And it kind of crystallized what's super important. I didn't become religious until I was about 24. So I grew up in a conservative home. Um, never wrapped a fill-in, never kept Shabbat, never ate, tried to eat kosher. And that's probably the most impactful because I can still close my eyes and see what it looked like. I never lost that. Flipping over a car, no. Black ice.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, these guys don't know what black ice. Well, actually, Tanner would.
Yeah.
But he's probably never flipped over a car.
Mm.
So, you have? Yeah. You know what it is?
Mm.
Well, but I think getting divorced from my first wife and after going through marriage counseling for 8 years and moving out because she was just never going to be. And that was difficult. But my kids are that's difficult. I don't think anything is difficult. I think if you take it head on, if you deal with it, move past it. There's always a path. You always know your true path. You always know your true north. You always know what's real. You always know what's not real.
I think over time also you're able to kind of through trial and tribulation, you start to learn what's real and not real. Cause you open enough doors, you start getting used to them and say, oh, I know what this feels like. I always make the joke. It's like my mother in a supermarket, you put like 1,000 watermelons in front of her. Like she knows which one is like the sweetest. And I was like, what is that?
I could never figure that out. How about a melon? You're supposed to touch the little ends.
She like slaps it. She hears like an echo. I don't know what's going on, but she's bats 100. And I go to her and I'm like, well, always she has no way of explaining it to me. But like the truth is because she, grew up on a kibbutz. They used to have watermelons. She would know, like, it's just the reps. Sometimes you just need so many reps where it becomes like second nature. And, previously you mentioned doing your first deal with your dad at 23. Was that a real estate deal? Was that your first entry and like taste into real estate?
So I had taken that year off here. So from 19 to 20, I took a year off. I actually worked for my uncles and I learned their real estate business, how they did apartments. And they did new construction in Homestead, like the crappiest freaking things you could imagine. Slab on grade. Studs were like 36 inches on center versus 16 or 24. Chicken wire, blown insulation, smeared on stucco. And they were selling the house with $1,000 down. And then they financed the whole rest of the house. And then they took the paper, sold it to a bank. They made the spread. They put up this crap. Hurricane comes, they're gone.
See ya.
Yeah, it's like Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz. The house is gone.
By that time, it's sold.
Yeah. But I learned from them. I think the most important thing, impactful thing I learned from my Uncle Marvin was to always ask for something. All someone can do is say no. And always ask for everything that you want right up front. Don't go in and retrade your deals. He would always tell me, don't. Not respectful. But I made enough money. Brought myself a really nice car. Went back up north.
Wait, how old were you at the time?
I'm 20, 21. So
you're 21, you buy what car?
So in Miami and South Dade, there's a place called the Z Shop. It's on 136th and Dixie. I don't know if it's still there. I haven't driven down there in a while. And I bought a 1976 280Z. and it was in rough shape, and they redid the whole car for me. They did it. The Z was a straight 6, but they bored it. They poured it and polished the heads.
Wow.
They put in special injectors. They turbocharged it, and they water injected it, so it didn't have pre-ignition. We lowered the suspension. We put BBSs around it. I mean, I just tricked out the car, and
at 21,
it wasn't even expensive.
Yeah,
you know, I don't know, maybe because I had made like 60 grand.
Wow.
Bartending, working for my uncles, and selling towels and T-shirts here in the Hialeah flea market. Okay.
Wow.
And I was having a ball. I was meeting girls everywhere. I was meeting girls on the side of the road. I was meeting. My cousin always tells me this story that I picked up this girl from my car.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, and she is 55, so she used to hang out with me all the time. That's Marvin's daughter, Colby. I don't really remember that story, but she's like, I remember it. And then you parked and you got her number. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, I see you with her. I'm like, well, I got her number. I'm going to call her.
Yeah, I'm 21. You know? I got a new car.
So, no, this wasn't in the new car.
Oh, no.
I was driving a beat up 70 Vega. I don't know if you know what a Vega was.
I can only assume
Vega
it's not
was
a
like
nice
the
car, right?
cheapest Chevrolet car there is.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
so a lot of this came from your uncles, really. Like your uncles kind of
they
showed you that
they shaped me a lot.
Yeah.
So I came back. I did my sophomore year. I worked really hard to get on the field at CCSU, at Central Connecticut State University. They were D2 school, and I actually saw carries in the 4th game on a travel game, the CW Post, when the starting tailback, who was on a scholarship, a kid named Mike Liverpool, he got hurt. And then the backup kid, who was from Shelton, Connecticut, all-state tailback in high school, name was Ronnie Andranowitz, he got hurt, and I was running back punts. So I had traveled with a team. I was like 7 on the depth chart, but I had traveled with a team, and they're like, you're in. I'm like, okay, because you never even take, when at games, you can't take your helmets off. They're very, very different than they are today. It's not like a dig me game with a special gloves or anything. And I get in the game. It's in the 3rd quarter, and I don't even know what happened. It was a 57 jet. I'll never forget it. And I hit it for like 40 yards.
Get out. And
the coach is like, well, we knew you were fast, but I'm like, I'm the fastest guy in the team. I had the fastest 40 in the team, and I ended up taking the job, and I played my sophomore, junior year. But going into my junior year, my mother gave me a book. I'll circle back to the real estate. My mother gave me a book called Nothing Down by Robert G. Allen, who, if you don't know who he is the founder of every one of these real estate programs. He's the founder of Creative Financing. He wrote the book in 78. He's republished it every decade since. He is what I call a mentor to me. We have him on my calls in the community. He's speaking at our event in November. He is 77. He's become a really good friend to me. Excuse me. And I read the book. Took me a day. Called my mom, who, by the way, if I didn't say, she was a commercial real estate broker. Called her and I said, Mom, I want to buy property. She goes, you have the money? I'm like, yeah, you know I have the money. I have this money that I got back from Florida. I spent some on the car, but I still have like 40 grand. And it was in a passbook savings account. And she's like, well, let me see it. So I'm like, so I showed it to her. And she's like, okay, I know what you're going to do. I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? She goes, I'm going to show you a property. It's right next to a college. We're going to do a light renovation on it, and you're going to lease it to the college students, but the parents are going to guarantee the rent. And I said, okay. And so I underwrote it in the crude way that I knew how to underwrite from reading Robert Allen's book. And I showed it to her, and she said, no, that's all wrong. She said, you have your expenses correct. Okay. All right. But you're forgetting These are college students. These are parents. These are 9-month leases. And
Mm.
you're going to improve them. So the rent is not going to be twice as much. It's not going to be 3 times as much. It's going to be 4 times as much because you're creating a different environment for the children. I'm like, well, I'm a children and I live in a dorm. So we contracted a property. It was a vertical 3-unit building, a 3-family house that backed right up to the college's field. So you could walk right out your back and go to the school. And it was at Trinity College. And I couldn't get a loan. I went to 10 banks. They all turned me down. They turned me down because I was a college student without income. And what I was trying to show them is Robert Allen's book said use the income from the rentals to qualify. And they didn't want to give me the money. So I called my mom and I'm telling my mom, I'm like, Mom, I think we're going to have to get my deposit back. I can't close on this. And she said, I'm making meatloaf. I'm like, Mom, did you hear what I said? Because I'm making meatloaf. Why don't you drive over? Because where I was in school was like 3 towns over, like 2.5 towns over from where I was, where I grew up. And I'm like, okay, but are you making the potatoes too?
Yeah.
So she's like, yes, just how you like it.
I'm on my way.
And she said, bring your setup, okay? And you're going to show the deal to your dad. I'm like, okay. So I had my contract. I had my renovation contract and estimate. And then I had my numbers on one page, the deal, with what the return would be. And I get there, I'm really excited. And my mother's like, do not talk about business. Your father comes home because we always had dinner at 5:30. Always sat down at the table. We didn't talk business. We talked about life. And she's like, whatever you do, don't talk about it. So the meatloaf is great. I still have a recipe today.
Wow.
And really easy to make meatloaf. And dinner ended. And my mom said, do you want to talk to your dad about something? I'm like, yeah. So my dad's like, well, go sit in my study and talk about it. So I had him in a little manila folder. I pulled it out. And my dad said, do you want to be a real estate investor? I said, yeah. He said, okay. Looked at the deal and he said, all right, meet me on Wednesday in front of so-and-so bank and 9:00 a.m. I'll see you there. I'm like, okay. So I got to go there. I got to cut class, but I'm going to go there and get my deal done. And you didn't cut class in college back then, or you were noticed. So I meet him in front of the bank called United Bank and Trust. And my dad said, what am I getting out of this deal? I said, what do you mean? What are you getting out of this deal? He said, I want a piece of the deal. And I said, well, how much do you want? And he said, I want 60% of the deal.
Wow.
I'm like, Dad, you're like a Shylock, or, come on, you're a dentist. He goes, well, what do you think is fair? And I'm like, let's flip it around. I'll give you 40% of the deal. I'm going to do all the work, put up all the money. And he said, but you can't get a loan. You got nothing. And I put my hand out and he's like, all right. So we shook hands on it. That's how you did business back in the olden days. We walk in and my dad walks back to the secretary for the president. His name was John Morris. We walk back to her desk. And my dad goes and gets coffee. He introduces me to her. I forgot her name. And he goes and gets coffee. I'm like, where the fuck is my dad going? You're leaving me to the wolves.
Wow.
Within a minute, the president of the bank walks out and shakes my hand. Really nice to meet you. Your dad said you have, something for me. You need some help. I'm like, yeah. We went into his office. We sat down. I took out the contract. I took out my GC's estimate, which was, 1 page. And then I took out the setup on the deal. And he looks at it, maybe all of 25 seconds. He puts it down. He said, I'll loan you the money.
Wow.
I said, just like that. He goes, yeah, just like that. He said, do you have the money to do the deal? I said, I actually do. And my dad did tell me to bring my passbook savings account. And it's at a bank down the street. It's Society for Savings. He said, and I showed it to him. He said, that's a lot of money for a young man. I said, I worked, I saved, and he said, would you be willing to put it in the bank? I said, yeah. I said, okay. I'm going to loan you the money. And he said, I'm going to loan it to you on a 90-day note because you're not planning on keeping this property. You're planning on fixing it up, stabilizing it, and selling it. And I'm like, okay. And I said, well, what do I do next? He said, 2 days before the closing, call me, tell me what you need to close. Okay. Your money's already going to be in the bank. All right. All right. You'll come down and sign the 90-day note, and you'll pick up a bank check, and then bring it to your attorney, and then they'll disperse. Okay. Because I hadn't done a closing before. I didn't know the process, because that's how the process was, in the olden days. Agents would pick up their check at the closing. They would go to a closing and pick.
Yeah.
Like everybody was there waiting to get their paid. So we walk out of the bank. I said to my dad, I'm like, Dad, you didn't do anything. Oh, this is what I forgot. I said to him, why are you doing this? And he said, you don't know, do you? And I said, what don't I know? And he said, we bought your grandfather's bank. My grandfather had a 3-branch bank. We bought his bank. So essentially, you're a very special customer of the bank, but the branches are some of your grandfather's. So we've been taking care of your whole family for years. So that was why he was so generous. And he did multiple deals for me the same way. They would finance 100% everything that I would do. And, even when I brought him a bad deal, he went through the deal and he said, look, this is not a good deal for you. Okay, I'll loan you the money, but I don't think you should do it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get my deposit back.
Wow.
And, I started buying. I bought that 3. We fixed it up. The total deal, I was into it for 24. The rehab was about 12 to 16. So every penny that I had in the bank. And we got it stabilized. We put it on the market. And I made $108,000 on that deal. And that was the first time I had to learn how to use Section 1031 in the IRS code. Of course, my mother helped me with it.
Time for another one.
And she found me 2 6s in the same market, street over, brick, that were foreclosed on. And we bought them from a bank called American National. They were in Hamden. And they were so happy to sell me the properties, they financed it.
Wow.
And they financed the same exact way. And that became, for me, like a piggy bank.
Wow.
Because I was able to push the value very quickly. And then on the same street, I bought 2 12s. And when I graduated, I had like 58 units.
Wow.
So
I always, notice a correlation. The moment an entrepreneur, I call it the click, but something clicks where it's like, wow, that it works. Like I had this idea and it works. And it works because entrepreneurship business is very funny. It's one of the only things that actually has a congruent scorecard, which is money.
Yeah.
Right. You do something, you get paid. It's like, no, it's undisputed. You made $108,000 on that deal, whatever it was. Like that is undisputed. It's money in your bank. You had an idea. There was work between the idea and the execution. You get paid, but it becomes addicting.
It's the chase of the deal has become addicting.
The game.
When the deal's closed, the deal goes into its typical funnel. It's going to get renovated. Rents are going to move. The efficiency is going to happen. We're not going to terminate anybody that works on the site. They're going to either follow our rules. We change our uniform company to Cintas, and we do all these different things. I had a guy call me and pitch me about pest control. I met him at my temple. Young guy, young Jewish guy. Beautiful Israeli wife. He's from Brooklyn, and he's hustling. And we use Ecolab.
Yeah.
They're expensive, but we use them. They're effective. They're good.
Yep.
And there are some contracts we cancel, there are some contracts we keep, but he wants to bid on our stuff. So I'll give him the opportunity to do it.
This episode is brought to you by Format, the platform that's quietly powering brands like Buy Sell, Backcountry, Unilever, Glossier, Adapt Naturals, GNC, Ilia Cosmetics, as seen on TV, and has been partnering with the leading agencies such as Tenuity, Common Thread Collective. So while you're debating which MarTech tool to sunset, these brands are building high-converting funnels faster than you can say growth loop. Format lets you launch campaign-specific landing pages with zero dev time, built-in heat maps, and an AI strategy that actually makes sense. So no more Frankenstein funnels, 14 tabs to change a CTA. If your team is lean, but your goals are not, head to formatcommerce.com. It's basically like Shopify and Figma had a very fast and very smart baby. Check it out.
Yeah.
So you're in your 20s now. You get a couple deals done. You're feeling good about it. Taking advantage of the 1031 exchange. I think most people know what that is, but we'll skip it quickly. It's essentially just a tax deferral.
Yeah.
Gives you the opportunity to roll your money. If you don't know what it is, use ChatGPT.
Yep.
Between now, where you are today, and that moment, there's a gap of trials and tribulations to get to that point, or to this point. Was there a moment in your 20s as you started scaling and building this where you actually didn't want to keep going? Didn't want to, like, I know, I actually don't know if this is the path for me, or was it, I love it, this feels good, this is what I'm going to do for the foreseeable future?
Never, ever question. 25, graduated college, took a job at a commercial bank called Suffield Savings. Didn't start out in the commercial lending department, started out in the securitization department. Had to sit my Series 7. I hated it. Securitizing loan packages was very different back then. And the best thing I ever did was noticing that the bank had an REO department and that it had deals, and getting my boss to allow me to buy them, and shifting from securitization and getting a job in the commercial loan department. So I was actually able to write my own loans. Obviously, they go through a loan committee, so they have to underwrite. You have to be properly capitalized, and that was a way for me to leverage up more. But 25, going into age 26, I take everything I have. I borrow from everybody that I possibly can, friends, family, everything, and I buy 183 unit property
At 26.
at 26.
Wow.
No, I was 25. I was turning 26. And called Taft Apartments.
You still own it?
And I don't even have enough money to close. I go to the closing that day. My attorney who did the closing, his name is Robert F. Cohn, still does legal work for us today. I tell him 40K short. I said, okay. Show up to the closing and pull the seller aside, talk to him. And he said, let me explain to you how to talk to him. I'm like, okay. Don't ask him for the money. Ask him for help. I'm like, pretty ingenious idea. He said, you see it that way? I said, yeah, because he's already spent the money. He's already a wealthy guy. He already saw, how hard I worked, through the contract period, through the due diligence period, getting financing. And he said, just ask him to help you. There's going to see something, going to see in you that he saw in himself. And I sat with him, and, I said, first, can I see, his name was John. First, can I sit with you, John DeQuat? Can I talk with you privately? He goes, yeah, is everything okay? And I said, yeah. And we went off and we sat on a corner and I said to him, I don't have enough money. And I really need. And he said, how short are you? And I made a joke. I said, I'm 5'6", you know, and he laughed and said, no, tell me how short. I said, I'm 40 grand short. He goes, wow, I thought you were a couple $100 grand short. He goes, don't worry, I'll lend it to you.
Wow.
So he lent it to me for 6 months. We paid him back in 60. About 90 days into owning the property, and we were doing our turns and our moderate change to the asset, I get a letter in the mail from a guy named Peter Hicks Property in Milton, Mass. World is a very small place. I went my freshman year, Curry College in Milton, Mass.
Wow.
And he sends me interested in buying the property. So, you know, he had a phone number. So I called him. He said, why don't you come up to Milton, Mass, and we'll have lunch at my house. He bought the property from me. Back then, capital gains was 6 months in a day. Today, it's 12 months in a day. Bought the property from me 6 months in a day from when I had it. And I walked out of the closing with a check a little bit bigger than $3.1 million.
Wow.
And I still retained 10% interest in the property because he was converting it to condos. And I wanted to learn the condo conversion business. And I learned that from him. I've learned it from some other people because there's always a little different way to do it. And I took the check and I drove to my dad's dental office, show him the check. And he's like, is this really real? I said, yeah, it's real. I said, yeah, you know, everybody's getting, you know, paid back their money. But he goes, can I have the check? And I said, well, what do you want to do with it? He goes, sign it over to me. I'm going to cash it. And I'm going to establish a trust for you. I'm going to take $1 million, put it in a trust, and you'll always be a millionaire. And I'm like, okay. Then I took the rest of the money, bought my first Rolex. I bought my manager. So I bought an 18 karat gold Submariner, blue face, blue bezel.
Beautiful.
I bought my manager. His name was Rene Rodriguez. Just talked to me the other day. Birthday's 2 days from mine, and still friends. Bought him the stainless, blue. Okay. And gave everybody a bonus property. And then ordered a brand new Porsche convertible. Back then they had white interior. So it was dark blue with white interior, blue top. Bought a boat, bought a house. And then I had like about $1.7 million left. I bought as much real estate as I could and started to grow really exponentially.
What happens? You're 26 at the time, right? What happens, you know, I'm curious what happened for you, but, you know, I had a similar experience, you know, sold my company at 25, 26, bought a couple of things, bought my mom a dream car, bought it, you know, very similar. So if I close my eyes, it's like I'm hearing myself. What happened to you mentally in that frame? Like, you know, you're now a multimillionaire, you're taking care of people. As a 26-year-old, that's no joke. It was a time before social media, so like, you know, your stuff's not everywhere, but the people who know. Mm-hmm. What struggles followed you post this big moment in your life? Like, I'm a multimillionaire. And like, how did you go out and deal with it?
So many struggles. That was when I met my wife, Susie. That's 1986. And we started dating, then we married and relocated here, 88. And I had come down here earlier, spent time with family, and I had started buying some deals south of 5th, which was a bad neighborhood. And I knew that I didn't want to be anywhere but here. And being a responsible husband was not so easy. And believing that you're better because you do so well, I got worse as I got older. As I made more money, I thought I was then smarter than everybody. And then until you go through losing a few deals, getting the shit beat out of you, and getting knocked down and kicked in the nuts and kicked in the face, you don't really realize that you're just a regular person. You're not smarter. Okay. Oh, you have a nicer car. It doesn't matter. Okay. You have more money. You're not thinking about what you're spending. None of that matters. What really matters is keeping the relationship that I had with God. That was always central. It always carried me from when I was 24. And you have to realize, be genuine to people that are genuine to you. And like I was talking before, sometimes I'm good with business, not so good with personal relationships. Not great at reading people. So biggest thing for me was, and I've said this multiple times, I should have figured out a way to stay instead of and
stay in what?
In my marriage. And because I have not the greatest relationship with my adult daughters. And I wish I did, because they were my whole life. They were everything to me. So,
and do you think the success had to do with that?
Yeah. They've actually become social media celebrities. They have a food channel. They travel the world. They're super successful. Good Morning America, 30 for 30 Forbes. They're just killing it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm always curious about that, because it's, my dad always comes back and he'll tell me, he always says the word simple. I bought this when I was in Toronto before I moved. I bought my dream car, which was an Edition 1 G-Wagon. It's what I wanted forever, with the piano and the whole thing. And I waited forever for it, and I finally got it. 2 months after I got it, I had like a home invasion. They came in my house, tore the gates, took my watches, but took my car. And it was the craziest thing ever. And I remember like being so sad about my car. I'm like, screw the house, screw the watch. It's not my car, And like everyone's like, it's just a car. I'm like, no, it's not just a car. Like this is like something I worked for years, And I remember like my dad was just like, I remember he called me. He's like, you good? I was like, yeah. He's like, you need me to come? I was like, nah. He's like, all right. Like he didn't care, He's like, what are you worried about? You lost a watch in a car.
It's a car, yeah.
But I remember he's just like, maybe just keep it simple. And it's like something that really sits with me. It's like, I just keep it simple. Like every time I want to complicate things, like, no, just keep it simple. Just keep it simple, keep it clean. And it's cool because like sometimes we have to learn like the hardest lessons to go through, but you just shared something super, super powerful, which is like, I wish I kind of stayed in it. And if there was, if you were able to go back and say something to maybe the younger version of yourself, what would it be? If that age, whatever it is, let's say 25, 30, you're in Miami, you're married at this point. When did you get married? 87, right? So like things are going really well for you. If you're able to like flash back to that version of yourself today, if we brought, that version here in 87, what is one thing you would say to your younger self?
So the Rebbe, the teaching,
the great Rebbe,
Schneerson,
the
Lubavitch Rebbe. He said that everything is for the good, but he said you have to recognize it. So, the story of Gamza Latoiva.
Yeah, this is also for good.
This too is for the good.
Yeah.
But the Rebbe clarified. He said everything is good, whether it's good or bad. And Hashem gives you all these amazing warnings, opportunities, signals, and talks to you when he sees that you're making a mistake. And I was too in tune with my own vanity and my own narcissism, or yeah, it was my own pure vanity that made me not stay. And money makes you think you're better, which you're not. And going back to the way I was raised, where I should have had that mentality. But I figured after 8 years counseling and there was no change whatsoever, I was going to be miserable. And I didn't want my children to see that, which is why I filed for divorce. I left. So, which
That's
is
really
still
powerful.
a strategically bad move. You don't divorce a Jewish American princess. She still hates me today. I don't know if she hates me. Not nice.
So what would you tell that version of yourself if you're able, like you're sitting here in the future, you know what you know so far. What do you wish you could have told that version of yourself today?
No matter what, grind it out. Same simple formula for success. No matter what, grind it out. Okay? If you're not getting on the field, then show up every day, grind it out. Make whatever opportunity you have count. If you're not seeing enough deals, find more. You know, in sales, if you're not making enough money, make more sales calls. If you're not, getting in shape, then look at what you are and do more reps. Show up more often. You want to lose weight? It's really, this is a tough one. This is a complicated one. Eat less. People ask me, Daniel G, I think he asked me in Tulum, why do I get up at 4:30 and how do I get up at 4:30? And the answer is, I like to get up at 4:30 because it's silent and I can think. Okay. But at 4:30, when I get up, okay, I get up. And he's like, well, what do you mean you do it? I said, I just get up. My body is conditioned to get up. You want to get up early, just get up. People just make things complicated. The worst deals that I ever had were the deals that were super complicated. When you keep your capital stack a certain way, okay, the deals are great. The deals work. So
yeah, it's super powerful advice, but also like just it's kind of like the essence for life in a way, where it's like everything is constantly trying to pull away. And one of my old mentors would say, the world is designed to eat your margin. And every day that you don't get up and do the reps, you have less margin to the point where you're actually out of business. And everyone's taking a piece of your margin every single day.
Every day.
Every day, whether it's your health, your time, your life, your friends, your fitness, your relationships. Like if you sit and do nothing, everything will get worse. Guaranteed. It's just going to get worse. And you got to fight for it. And I always thought that was super interesting, but also just to hear that would be one of the pieces of advice you'd give to your younger self is something that every single person, no matter what you do, can relate to. And sticking in your marriage, which is like after 8 years of counseling, like it sounds like you tried to even go back and say, you know what, grind it out is really powerful and meaningful. That I think a lot of people would listen.
Before Sarah was born, got along great. We had a great relationship. But something happened after Sarah. She had a difficult delivery. She stopped enjoying sex. Painful because she had problems with her cervix. A hard delivery. And, it just, and then every little thing with me, everything that she loved about me became everything she hated about me. Okay. That I would dress like this, that I would put gel in my hair, that, why do you always have to dress up? Why, why do you have to wear this? And I'm like, well, I thought you liked it. You're the one. I didn't know what Gucci was. I didn't know what Prada was. You're the
Right.
one that took me there.
Right.
Okay, you took me there. Okay. And she was, so super.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Keeping going on the Founder to Founder pod. We were just talking about watches, which I think is super interesting. And you're telling me about this incredible story of this Richard Milley. And I talk about watches in an interesting way because you and I seem to be buying watches the same way. That always has a story behind it because I don't sell watches. I just buy them.
That first deal.
Yeah.
And I engraved it on the back. And every time I do that, and then there's certain things that a watch has significance for me.
Mm.
So like a watch that has a flyback, and I'll write something on it. It always grounds me to the level of being vulnerable because the flyback is open. You can see everything.
Wow.
Okay? And one of the kids in my shul who was in the Israeli army, he was in the rescue unit 6969. I'm sure you know what that is. And he comes to our office and he works out of there. He doesn't work for us. He just comes and hangs out. Become a Torah scholar in the last couple of years. And one day we're at the Bima and we're talking and he said, well, what kind of watch is that? And I said, it's an AP. And he's like, I've never seen an AP like that. I'm like, well, it's a gator. So it's a rubber band, but it's a gator chrono with a gator face. The green gator number. Okay. Very hard to get. And he goes, that is a nice watch. And I said, yeah, it's pretty nice. And he had a Batman on, which I love. I've never bought one. I probably will go buy one because you can smash it. It's a great travel watch.
Yeah.
You can beat it up. And I said, well, your watch is a beautiful watch. And he said to me, the difference between my watch and your watch is my watch tells time. Your watch tells you how much your time is worth. And until I started doing, not the real estate, until I started in the last year, 10 months, we started teaching real estate. I didn't realize how valuable all these life lessons were to other people and how people who are extremely successful will pay for your experience. And we just actually did something with our called a millionaire mentorship. And I never wanted to sell one before, expensive. And a guy from Green Bay, Wisconsin, got me on the phone with one of my guys. It was a Zoom, and signed up, wired the money right there. And a week later, I went to his property. We spent 4 hours with his banker and the bank's appraiser, and we got his credit facility expanded to almost $2 million more, $1,960,000 more, right on the spot. I've never had a meeting like that with an appraiser where I beat him up, and he was so respectful, and he came full circle, and the banker just wanted to say, okay.
Wow.
And it was Green Bay. It was actually Sturgeon Bay.
Wow.
The guy's name is Lonnie.
So within the community now, you're educating, you're teaching. Is it people of all stages who are just like interested in it? Is it mostly people who are investing? Who's the ideal person to really win?
So we started out after the first video, then Christian and Adrian joined us, and we used to sell a 15-minute call for $97. And that 15-minute call for $97 would turn into a half an hour, and it would turn into me solving people's life stories. Okay?
For $97.
Not real estate. Okay. And I started to become very vested with them, and I started to actually care for them. And then at the same time, Christian said, can you write a real estate course? And I'm like, yeah. So I wrote a real estate course over a weekend, and then we filmed it, and then we put it on school, and we started selling the course on June 20th of last year. for $27. And I had one student. Her name was Lydia Walker. Such a nice girl. And for 2 weeks, we stood there and sat there and stared at each other on a Zoom call and talked real estate. And she told me her whole life story, and we became friends. She came to my wedding. She was there. She flew in for my wedding, the 3-week marriage. And I'm friends with her today. She sent me pictures. They went and swam with the dolphins. She met a guy. They bought their first deal together in St. Louis. I tried to negotiate her first 2 deals, which we couldn't, we just couldn't pull the trigger. One, she contracted, but it was a wholesaler, and he wanted her to close in 2 days. And I'm like, look, we need due diligence. And the second was, we got it under contract in St. Louis, Missouri, couldn't get an inspection, so we canceled that contract. Third, we bought for $34K, put in $35,000, and she just refinanced it for $150K. From that period, she has bought 24 units. She went the single. She bought a fourplex, took the money from there, bought the fourplex, applied the same principles in St. Louis. During that phase, she got engaged and married. She bought a single family house where she's from in Texas, Denton, Texas, and manages everything remotely based on how we teach. And then she bought an 18 unit by refinancing fourplex. And she's applying the same principles. They're all within about a mile of each other in St. Louis.
So within a year, she went from 0 to an 18 unit.
She has about $8,200 a month in cash flow, and she's a beast. And she really now talks real estate. And she's gone from here to there. And that was pretty much the profile of the people that we didn't know we were targeting that came into our funnel. They don't have experience, they don't have credit, and they don't have capital, but they have a desire to change their life. And that's I think we call it Premium Protege Program. It's a $3,500 ticket. You know who created that for me? First guy that was doing closings for me, Daniel G.
Wow.
The first social media guy that discovered me was Daniel G.
Wow.
Immediately befriended me. We smoked a cigar. We immediately hit it off. Wherever he asked me to speak, I would go. Okay. And, he's super busy. Thing with my soon-to-be ex-wife was kind of a little tested our relationship, but we buried the hatchet because our friendship is more important. I had to go back and repair all those things that she damaged. But I pray for her. I hope she finds, some kind of mental health somewhere.
I want to walk through 2 scenarios with you and just kind of see how you build it, because I think it's gonna be super powerful. So I want to do one scenario is, someone essentially like the ICP here, has a genuine interest, has the hustle, has the ingredients. You got to have the ingredients. Otherwise, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what course, who it is, you're not willing to do the work, you're not gonna get anything out of it. So assume they have it, but they don't have the money, they don't have the credit. Walk me through what it takes, what it would look like typically for that person to go from 0 to some form of cash flow. I don't know. I don't know what the definition of success is. Perhaps it's 3K, 5K, 10K. It depends on whatever that is.
Who that person is.
And then after that, I also want to do a quick example for someone that has a little bit of money, has achieved some level of success and is interested in the real estate. Because the reason why I want to do both is I think we have listeners on both, but there's a lot of extremely well-established founders within the Founders Club that are going to listen to this, within the community that have, we talk about it all the time inside of our community, that have a bunch of have money on the sidelines, but don't even know where to start. So let's start with the first one, someone, maybe young, new to it, but super interested, doesn't have many resources.
So those people is what we've kind of tailored the course to. And if they can't get financing through the Stripe payment systems or through Afterpay or Klarna or all those different things these payment processors offer, we finance.
You finance the course.
We finance the course for them. So guy wants to learn wholesaling, which we teach wholesaling very rapidly, but we teach wholesaling a little bit different than most wholesalers. It's called ethical wholesaling. It's got to be done with the memorandum of understanding. Both sides need to know what the spread is on the transaction. because you cannot mark up a property by 50 or 100 grand and fuck somebody.
Mhm.
That's what wholesalers do. Our typical markup is 5 grand.
Right.
Okay. But we've been getting volume. I think we had 54 deals last month. So we're seeing volume. That kid, Andreas, was my second high ticket mentee, and he's grown to run that division, and he's grown to run our business credit division. And he's a beast. Yes, we have a lot of support. Yes, we have a lot of people around him. Yeah. And we've created our own course with a set of policies and procedures and how we do things. So everything we do is systematic. It's all process driven, because real estate is process driven, based on data. That's what everything is based on. Okay. So those people who can't afford it, we will finance them in our wholesaling for $300.
Right.
For 3
No, what about
payments.
the people that can't afford like the first property?
That's not an issue.
Right.
So we bring them in. If they have an issue with credit, we repair their credit for them. We don't charge them for that. Okay. Then we take them and get them a business line of credit through any of these 0% interest cards. We've had tremendous success at this. We teach them to form an LLC, $99. Okay. And we use the business line to give them money. Now, if they don't, what's the easiest way to buy a piece of real estate in the United States? Under FHA, first time home buyer program. You can borrow 96.5%. And if you don't have the down payment, they will give you the down payment of 3.5%.
Wow.
And if you don't have the money to rehab it, there's another loan, which is part of the program. It's called 203K. They'll give you $35,000 to rehab it. Or if it's a bigger rehab, they'll give you more.
Wow.
So you can technically in Dade County buy a 4-unit building anywhere. And the max loan amount in Dade County is $1,192,000. So $1.2 million. You tell me you can't find a fourplex that cash flows in Miami, because FHA allows you to use the income from the other units, just what I was doing, to create that value, to underwrite a higher DTI, which stands for debt to income ratio. Okay. And push it all the way up to 55, sometimes 60%. And I've seen people get FHA loans with credit scores of 520.
Wow.
Okay. It's usually the threshold's 580. You got to have a pulse to have 580. Okay. You got to have blood and a pulse to get 580. So that's the easy way. If they're a veteran, it's a free ticket. It's the golden ticket to the chocolate factory, because it's 100% financing, it's 100% rehab, and it's 100% closing costs. Just have to have their VA rep get it for them. And then we teach what people call subject to. We teach creative financing. We teach you how to solve a problem for a seller without using your own money. And that's all based on Robert G. Allen, nothing down. Simple. Okay. And if you keep those principles simple, you can create a vortex, you can create a myopic view, and you can do these things. You don't go off, you don't let somebody tell you can't do this. You just say, okay, well, watch me. Okay. Or you just go and this is the direction. Don't lose your direction. Don't lose your focus. Don't lose your drive, and don't listen to anybody who's going to tell you a bunch of shit.
Wow. That's super powerful. Now let's switch to an example.
Our bigger program, we have a bigger program.
Yeah.
So we have a multifamily program, which is my business. Okay. After doing 25,000 plus units, I'm a multifamily guy. I'm an apartment guy. And I wrote a curriculum. We started out charging 10 for it, and it became super busy. So we bumped that to 15, then we just bumped it to 20. And that's a community that we have that we just recently bought a bank deal with. So everybody has the opportunity to participate in it. We bought a bank deal from the old Silicon Valley Bank that failed. And we're buying a couple more doing the same exact thing.
Wow. So the idea is that within that community,
that's
within
our
that
syndicate. Yep.
That's like the syndicate. So people can go and do they own a piece of the property itself? Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we do that. They all have a say. Okay. And we only underwrite deals a certain way. A lot of new developers, they are a little aggressive growing their rents. Can't grow your rents aggressively. You got to simple 3% rule. You have to tie your expense ratios to CPI. And you're going to get the bumps, but you can't be unrealistic in your projection. So that's one. And then we just opened up this new program, which is really more of an add value and deploy some very high net worth individuals capital into some deals. Like the guy that I called, we're going to do our first sober living facility. It's a 23-bed facility.
Wow.
And I think our capital in the deal is going to be $100K.
Oh,
getting
wow.
40%. We committed to doing $1 million in equity, and we're getting 40% of the deal plus a 10% return, plus our money recycles in 12 months.
Wow.
So they'll refinance it, and then we'll own that deal in perpetuity, and then we'll go on to the next.
Wow.
A bunch of young guys, and they've had success doing 4 deals.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So
I want to jump into an example of someone that maybe has some money. Let's say someone has maybe $250,000 saved up, which may be the equivalent of like the $60,000, whatever it was 30, 40 years ago. And they want to jump into real estate. They want to do their first deal. They don't have so much trouble with the loans. Maybe they have a pretty good credit, but they got $250,000. They can't go start buying crazy things. Where would you say is the best place for them to start?
So you don't need a mentor to learn real estate. You can buy a book and do it. You're probably going to make certain mistakes. So that's why, and I realized it, that being a teacher has a tremendous effect on certain people. It's not the fact that they aren't capable of doing it. It's the fact that they're scared and they have the support. And the way we are is we're super high touch, where I stay involved. It's not like buy a course, just get a video, blah, blah, blah. No.
Yeah.
It's really hands-on, high touch. So we do that because it is passion for us to see the people that are doing this, like the Lydia Walkers, like the Raymond Gonzalez, like this morning with our roundup call, one of our closers mentioned a story about, hey, one of my new guys, in 20 days just bought his first property.
Wow.
Okay. And we can't even keep track of it because it's moving so rapidly. Because our school went from 50 to 100, 200, 400 to 600. Okay.
Wow.
And then there's the community. Then there's what I call the sub community that people are always on our Tuesday and Thursday call. Same people. Okay. It's 40, 50, 60 people. They're doing deals. They want to talk about them. They want to underwrite them. They want to know what's this issue? How do I solve it? What's the solution? And they inspire me. So, I love doing my own deals, but, it makes me feel like a father is looking at his child playing, scoring a goal. So
it's one of the most powerful things of a community. Also there's like that form of creating something that, is different that you maybe didn't even have, like you had your uncles and your family, but like I always say, like, I wish as a 25-year-old, like the day I sold my business, that I was surrounded by 20, 30, 40, 100 other people that were on the same path or also sold their business that can walk me through what's to come. One of our members just recently sold his business and he had an amazing fun week. He did his thing. And I remember, sharing with him an analogy. And it's like, sometimes when you sell your business and, you can resonate with this with some deals, it's like, kind of like you have this dog that you raise, you spend like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, you pour everything into this dog. Dog's own. Do you have a dog?
No.
Yeah, so
I love dogs.
I love dogs too. I don't have one because I know that it's like a sad day coming. It dictates your whole day. I got to walk it. I got to, it's basically like a child for some people. And then imagine one day someone knocks on your door and then just says, hey, here's some money. Give me the dog. You did a good job with the dog, by the way. It's a good dog. Thanks. That's a really good dog, actually. You do better in my home. So let me take your dog. And then not only that, everyone comes, celebrates you. They come by, they're like, all right, let's go. Like, let's go out. You got the money. You're like, what are you talking about? My dog's gone, right? But that's what happens. It's like your identity, your baby is gone, and it's a celebratory event. So I was, because I just went through it, I was able to tell him like, hey, it's going to feel good and then it's going to suck, but it's okay. It's going to suck, but it's fine. And fast forward a few weeks, he like hit me up and he's like, how long is it supposed to suck for? I'm like, oh, you're in the suck now.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fine. And sometimes that's what it is, the community. Someone sharing a deal, saying, hey, I'm underwriting this, or this went well, or for some reason, this isn't working out the way I thought it would work out. And someone can share, it's like, hey, I just dealt with that a week ago. This was my workaround, and it changes everything for them.
Yeah.
And it's a superpower.
It is a superpower. And
it's a cheat code.
I love that analogy.
I always say you have a Rolodex of people who are doing exactly what you're doing, bigger, faster, smaller, greater, different, in your pocket, and the fact that you can tap into that at any moment. And sometimes you need it more, sometimes you meet it less. Like I'm sure you find that some people are there like crazy and then they disappear. You're like, where did this person go? And they come back.
We see that. We see that. Yeah.
And that's totally fine. That's life. Sometimes we're hot and excited. Say people are hot and horny, and then they're good, and they come back. And
depends.
It just depends. It depends. So towards the end of the pod, I ask people an interesting question, and we touched on it. In terms of like, if you can go back and share something with the younger version of yourself. But I want to flip it upside down a little bit for today, because we kind of did that. And I want you to share.
I have an answer.
You do?
For that.
Okay,
yeah.
Let's do both. Okay. We're going to do both. I want you to, if you can go back to any age, one, what age would you go to? And B, what would you say to that version of yourself? We would bring it here. So that's the one. You'll answer that. The second one is, if we were to fast forward to the end of your life, and we're at the end of your life now, and you want to be known, remembered for a couple things, what would those things be? I'll let you choose which one you want to start with.
So I'm close to 120 because I'm going to live like Moses.
Of course.
Moishe.
Yep.
And the most important thing for me is I wanted people to know that I genuinely love people. I genuinely care for them. But I would tell myself at that point, when I had my first child, that this is the biggest blessing. Because being a parent is the greatest privilege that you have. And I would have went back to what I said. I would have found a way to make that marriage work for my kids. Wow. And because they are wonderful human beings. Their mother is, very good mother, just wasn't a good wife. And I would have changed that. Okay? I wouldn't have allowed the wealth to turn me into such an asshole. At the youngest age, I would have went back, took myself in college, and I would have done two things. One, I would have went bigger. And two, I would have made myself play my senior year college, play football. Because at my junior year, I'm not a big guy, but I was 187 pounds. I had to take stuff to be big. And you're constantly spending your day eating, training, okay? Now, my body never really got too beat badly, and your shoulders pop out. I broke my nose 8 times. These are just normal things. You break your fingers, those are just sports. That's just normal. I never hurt my knees. My ankles were a little soft, so I always taped on the skin, taped on the outside of the shoe. But I would have played that senior year, because had I known that I truly love the game. And the one thing about playing football, it made me mentally feel like I was 6'2". Okay. But I think my size differential and my speed made me a better player, where it's very hard to get a clean shot of me, which probably never got hurt. I never really got hurt badly. So I'd go twice as big, and as I said before, I would have done everything I possibly could to make that marriage work, because when you are a driven individual, you just don't want to fail it. And I gave up.
That's really powerful. As we wrap up, I want to say a handful of things. One, thank you for sharing on this pod, but I've consumed your content, and I'll tell you how that came to me.
Well, I do have a bone to pick with you.
Okay.
So,
let's pick it.
My weighted blanket's too heavy.
I don't own it anymore.
Stops my circulation.
Hey,
no, I'm just fucking with you.
Take it up with the current owners.
Yeah.
No, but I think you. First of all, I think the way you show up, and the way this even happened was my co-founder, who's also religious and wears a kippah, changed everything for me when we started our business. He looked me in the eye and he said, no matter what we do, we don't work on Shabbat. I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't work on Shabbat, yes or no? You work on Shabbat, I'm not doing this. And I committed to it. And it played a huge role in our business. And our business, we were in e-commerce. The biggest day of the year is Black Friday. Can you imagine not working on Black Friday? Like, it's the biggest day of the year. We make 60% of our EBITDA in 48 hours. We're not even allowed to be online. But he wouldn't budge. And his podcast, when he came on, when he wore his kippah, was a big deal. And he came up to me and he actually sent me you. And he's like, he represents our community really well. You should have him on. And then I obviously dove into the content. I loved it.
Well, you know why we were a kippah, right?
Tell me.
We were a kippah because it's not a religious halakha, which is the law. It reminds us that Hashem is above us. That's it. That's all. Okay. It's like why people don't even know why we put a mezuzah on the door. Okay. And why we kiss it when we go in and why we kiss it when we leave. Because when we're entering, we're bringing Hashem with us. And when we're leaving, we're taking him with us. Okay. These are like just simple things. When I said the bracha on the coffee to elevate the coffee, it doesn't make the coffee taste any better, but it elevates it to a level of holiness. So now it's a holy cup of coffee. And I do that. Most people don't realize what I'm doing. And I get shit every so often because I'll leave my iPad on to see if there's issues with the family on Shabbat. So I'll just look at it. All right. And I'll turn my phone on 6 o'clock and end Shabbos early. And these guys give me a ton of fucking shit. Okay. And I did something once. I did it for Daniel G. He asked me to speak late afternoon on Shabbat. And I did it. And that was what caused that rift between my wife and him.
Wow.
So, and yes, it's, I equate Shabbat with Thanksgiving. Every week we get Thanksgiving.
Isn't it incredible?
We get to eat, we get to drink, calories don't count.
Yeah.
Okay. We get to sing. We reflect a little bit. If you go to shul, you get an aliyah, if you're lucky enough to get an aliyah. What's better than that?
Yeah, I think it's really powerful, and it's rooted in integrity, and it's how a man shows up, and it's I can tell right away, just your level of integrity is so important to you, and it oozes out, which is why I always say when we're living in our authentic form and we're living through like integrity, you connect immediately. Like you started, I don't even know if this was on the pod, but it might have been before. You said, within like 5 minutes, I can tell if someone's legit, or within like 120 seconds, like 2 minutes really. And I believe that's because when you are your authentic version of yourself, when you are living in integrity, you pick up, like that wave is the wave. And you kind of like radar, you send it out, and if it bounces back, you know who you're dealing with. So I just want to say thank you for that, because it means a lot that you came here, you spent the time, you brought the team. It all counts. It goes a long way, and everyone that's listening is going to benefit huge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Founder to Founder podcast. And I have one favor, just one favor to ask. It's the only favor I'll ever ask from you. And if you liked what you listened to please like, subscribe, and please just leave a comment. Let us know what you think, how we can make it better. We are all in on delivering value to you. And all we ask in return is that you hit that subscribe. It goes a long way for what we're trying to build here. And as always, we post an episode every single Wednesday. So stay tuned, and thank you for tuning in.